of our consciousness. And Mary is that aspect that receives, becomes, and gives birth to just being that presence, to awakening that that's who we are. Where Jesus took that and then demonstrated it out in the world. But you can't take it out there in the world if you're trying to fix the world without having it yourself. It ain't gonna work. First we have to be it. Be that presence of love, birthing the Christ consciousness. Then we go out to the world. Mary gets it, she births it, and Jesus demonstrates it. But the joy is in the flow, not in the effort or the struggle or the controlling or fighting the flow. Anybody here get a Christmas gift this year from the type of person that says, this Christmas, in lieu of gifts, I've decided to give everyone my opinion. Anybody get one of those this year? It's a gift that keeps on giving. Repeat with me, joy is in the flow. Together?
Joy is in the flow.
Man, I wish I'd have known that when I was younger. It could have saved me years of misery. Anybody here fight the flow, resist the flow?
Oh, you betcha.
Oh, man. Joy is in the flow. One more time.
Joy is in the flow.
Now, acceptance of that doesn't mean we don't do anything. But we don't fight what's going on. We trust in our union, in our relationship with the divine, knowing the guidance will come. All that is needed will be there in the right time, in the right way. If we just stay in that flow, joy is in the flow. Because with joy, you can't plan it. Not like happiness. You could probably plan a little happiness, but not joy. You can't control it or make it happen. There are those who try to take heaven by a storm. Have you ever heard of that one? Taking heaven by a storm, and you can do it with drugs. You can do it through spiritual disciplines that try to force that awakening of the Kundalini. And man, if you're not ready for it, that can be dangerous. You have to be ready for awakening. You can't force it. And the other thing I've learned over the years, so this took me a while too, you can't make another person feel joy. Can't bring joy to another person. Maybe a little happiness. There was a wonderful story about a minister who took his 3-year-old son to New York City at Christmas time to visit Grandma. She lived in New York City. And they just knew this little 3-year-old was going to be overjoyed by Rockefeller Center and the Christmas tree and the lights and the department store window displays, and they couldn't wait to take their little 3-year-old to New York. Well, the kid got there and hated it. The author said he acted like he was a kid at a doctor's office waiting for a shot. So finally they were about to leave, and they got in an elevator in a department store. And that elevator started going up, and the lights came on, and the bling and the chimes, and the kid went nuts with joy. Oh, wow, and they got them, no, I want to go down again. Now I want to go up and down. The kid wanted to go all that. He found his joy in the elevator. What works for one does not work for another. I love it when people will say, oh, well, this worked for me. Now you got to try it. It doesn't work. What works for one of us doesn't always work for all of us. That's why my favorite author, once again, Louise Penny, always says the phrase, surprised by joy. Joy surprises us because there's no reason for it. Out there, it just comes up, pops up from within. There's nothing you can do to bring it on. There's nothing for you to do to hold on to it. It just pops up. It comes over you like trying to chase a butterfly, and you can't catch one, but if you become still, it just lands on your hand. But what you can do is make room for joy. And that's by releasing all the joy busters. Joy is more about letting go than finding or seeking. Just before I came, I know I did the book, The Untethered Soul in Tulsa, and I know you all did it here about the same time. And Michael Singer said, most of us are tethered by unfinished energy patterns that end up running your life. All those times we react. You have emotions that are your norm. It's like a recipe. certain amount of fear, a certain amount of love, a certain amount of insecurity. And you know that if certain things happen, one or more of these emotions will flare up and dominate your awareness. Don't resist the flow. Your joy is in the flow. If you don't resist it, fight it. Allow the feelings to come up, allow the feelings to pass through you, and then open to your joy. And the other thing we can do is be still and know. Psalm 37 reminds us, delight in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. Now the only thing is in modern day we have to change terminology a little. Most of us don't like the word Lord. I don't need any outside being lording it over me. We don't like that, do we? But if you metaphysically interpret the word Lord as it's meant to be interpreted, it's the ruling nature of our spiritual I am. In other words, our higher self, our spacious self, is the Lord of my being. Now I can handle that. Delight in that sacred self, deep within me, not the outer illusions, and I will receive the desires of my heart. The Christmas message, I will give you tidings of great joy, does not mean happiness. The world isn't always there for that, but it'll rise up if you allow it. You know I grew up on the farm. I've told you that often enough. My mother would bring milk in every day after milking the cows, put it in the refrigerator, and all of you who grew up on the farm knew what happened, right? The cream would rise up from the top. We always had a pitcher of cream on the table, which is why I look the way I do. I was raised on fresh farm cream. But that's the way it is with joy. If you just let it sit, it'll rise to the top. You can't force it. Elizabeth Gilbert talked about a Sanskrit word. I love this Sanskrit language. And I don't know if I pronounce it right, but she calls it antevasin, one who lives at the border. A person who had left the bustling center of worldly life to go live at the edge of the forest where the spiritual masters dwelled. The antevasin was not one of the villagers anymore with a conventional life, but neither was he yet a transcendent, not one of those sages who live deep in the unexplored woods, fully realized. The antevasin was an in-betweener. Don't you feel like an in-betweener some days? A little bit spiritual, a little bit naughty human. He was a border dweller. He lived in both sides, the sides of both worlds, but he looked toward the unknown. And that last line, he lived in between, but he looked toward the unknown, toward the spiritual nature, took delight in that of spirit. Mary and Jesus came to show us the way across the border that walled down those walls. The land of sorrow and struggle, the land of joy of the kingdom. We're at the border. From the mind to the heart, the way to joy is all in the Christmas message all the way through it. Mary is simply being that presence, awakening to it. And then Jesus extends it out into the world. Can't have one without the other. Can't demonstrate it if you don't be it. You can't be it without knowing and awakening to the fact that we are the divine. We are the love we seek. Let's take that into prayer. God, we are willing. We are willing to release and let go of everything in our life that keeps us from that full experience of access to the divine. And we sit and rest in the stillness to allow that joy to rise to the top. Not resisting it, not fighting it, but simply allowing what is, knowing that it is taking us there with grace and with ease in the right time that will come forth. The angels of joy, we invite you into our hearts. Angels of joy, surround us and guide us and be with us this day and forever. For we pray this in the deepest nature of the living Christ. And so it is, so it truly is. Amen.
Please join us in singing Hark the Herald.